Happy solstice. I knew if I were going to close out the Sovereign Society podcast for 2020, it was going to be on the solstice. And it was going to be about a topic that I've been really honing in on and reflecting on since this summer, around my 31st birthday. And with the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction, they're making love and have returned the Star of Bethlehem. And when we think about what's gone on in 2020, I think a lot about Yeshua. I don't like to call him Jesus anymore, because to me that name has a lot of negative stigmas, and it's not his real name. Plain and simple. It's not his name. His real name was Yeshua. But when we think about the birth of Yeshua, it was just a normal day. Just like a lot of people think like, oh, the solstice today is just a normal day. But there were 3 wise men that came and delivered frankincense and myrrh and gold. So if you don't think that minerals are important, if you don't think that, these gifts that were given and this idea of, that Yeshua, when Yeshua came through, he was a sacred rebel and a sacred disruptor to the system. And that's why he was crucified and pretty much put at the stake, right? There's a lot of parallels that have been going on in 2020. And this has been the purge of the last of the Piscean age. If we have Saturn and Jupiter conjunct in Aquarius, this is literally us anchoring in. This is the dawning of the age of Aquarius, but the 5D unity consciousness. And this is the thing that I really want to hone in on today is, more of this 5D conversation, which I've been talking about the last couple of weeks. But also a bigger topic here that is the conversation around the New Age to Jesus trend. And I don't even believe in that. Like I said, it's more of healing the relationship that people may have grown up with Yeshua, beyond the negative stigma of the Piscean patriarchal age. And that's what has been my journey. And you're going to be hearing all about it in my upcoming book, Alignment is the True Hustle. Italian Catholic schoolgirl, the amount of shit I went through as a child of dogma and conditioning and fear of the religious upbringing. And it really rocked me. It really shook me. And it really destroyed my spirit. And so growing up with the mindset or the belief that Jesus is always condemning me, right? Yeshua would always love me. And I had a lot of death in my life growing up since I was the age of 3. So I grew up in a society and an upbringing of like, what the hell is the whole purpose of this thing called life? All I've seen is death and trauma and pain. And I've been navigating through depression since the age of 3. And this has been the driving force of my work of helping sacred disruptors dismantle the matrix. That's what Yeshua did. And so, this idea of the 5D, or this belief or knowing that the 5D unity consciousness is here for us to really anchor it in, we need to love the leper. We need to love those who have a different mindset or a different belief or a different way of being in their society, in their upbringing, because everyone is reacting based off of their own traumas, their own experiences, and their own projections of their perceptions. And I've seen that. And this is why the past 3+ years of my work, I've been helping people do that deeper ancestral and inner child trauma work. And I've seen how that also plays a role in our finances, plays a role in our relationships, that plays a role in us confidently embodying our sovereignty, our sovereign truth. And so when we talk about the new age, right, I've definitely have seen a lot of the manipulation and the mind control that can come from the quote New Age movement, because the New Age movement does carry a lot of false light. What is false light? It's a perception, it's a deception, I should say, of what is the truth. And so a lot of these quote New Age teachings aren't even new teachings, right? They are from other religions. They are ancient, it's ancient wisdom, but it's been packaged in this false light. So what do I mean by that? Good vibes only, love and light. All of these things, like, of the spiritual bypassing that the New Age movement brings is real. It is rampant. New Age has, when I dove into the New Age after I was struck by lightning and just so mad at God, I was so mad because I just seen shit after shit after shit from my childhood, and so much pain, that I was like, there has to be something else out there, because obviously my Catholic upbringing, like, it really held me back from my sexual expression. It really held me back from living my truth. It put me in a box that I knew was not supportive of who I am. And it really rocked me, And so when I got struck by lightning, I was like, all right, I'm going to start researching other things. And of course, like, if I were to have gone back to school or go to get my master's, I would get it in religious studies, because I love these other cultures and their beliefs. But it's really important to also be aware of the dogma and the conditioning. And that was carried pretty rampant in the Piscean patriarchal age. We cannot have this, cookie cutter approach of what you're supposed to be. When, God is working through us, we have different gifts and talents. And from that space of our experiences and our wisdom, that is the platform of our sovereignty. That is where we get to really show up and be of service in who we are. And when we think about the New Age movement, that was another form of religion, of cookie cutter. I fell into a lot of the dogma, even becoming a Kundalini yoga teacher, of like, oh, this is how I have to be or have to perform. And it wasn't until Burning Man, my first Burning Man, that this guy was at a Kundalini class, and I was in the middle of teacher training, and I was like, all right, I can't do any psychedelics, anything. I need to just stay on track, because all I wanted was to be quote unquote on the right path. And he was like, who is Yogi Bhajan to tell you who you need to be? You need to just trust yourself. And that was the greatest gift I got at that Burning Man. And then leave it to 2020, where all of these stories and allegations about Yogi Bhajan come up about, being a sexual predator. And it's been a challenge for me to deliver the teachings, but it's still, I'm navigating through a lot of it, because those practices and the technology and the medicine of that has still, it's brought me back home to me in a way as well. And so, these New Age beliefs and the idea of who you need to be, it's running rampant in the coaching industry and in the spiritual community. But it's also super awesome to see who are the people who are dismantling from that matrix in itself of who you need to be. Because to me, that's the trap of the fourth dimension of time. We're not accelerating into a unity consciousness, because we're stuck in consciousness traps and loops. And that was a lot of what the New Age also brought. Yes, I had a lot of these consciousness traps and loops from my super strong Catholic religious upbringing, going to Catholic school for 8 years, and having family members be part of the church. And it was just a lot. And of course, being one of 14 grandkids on my father's side, there was a lot of that people pleaser that I needed to be, or it'd be the golden child. And it was a lot of pressure. And so, doing the work of cultivating my own relationship with Yeshua that is true to me feels great. Because parts of me feel okay, even when we think about Christmas, all the red and white hanging, that's all the stories of like mushrooms drying. And we see mushrooms in a lot of pictures in the Gospels and in ancient scrolls and photos and art. And so to me, you know, working with psychedelics and connecting to that has actually healed my relationship with Yeshua and has made it stronger. Like, Yeshua was a sacred rebel. Yeshua, I still believe Yeshua and Mary Magdalene and their twin flame connection and union. And think of just Mary Magdalene. She was condemned all the time for, you know, being the bad girl. And then she was Yeshua's greatest devotee. And so my prayer is that, you know, the pendulum doesn't swing so far to the left and doesn't swing so far to the right. And that's been the gift of 2020. In tantric numerology, it's a 4-year. That's the neutral mind. Both sides of the coin to recognize it's a coin, finding that homeostasis and that balance. And that's where that unity consciousness comes in as well. We have to come together and see and recognize and be kind to people who have different mindsets and beliefs. And that was the frickin' test, especially with the damn election. And even, you know, as someone, I consider myself a truth seeker, and seeing what's going on, I'm being tested now with the unity consciousness on how can I be compassionate to people who are still caught up in the fear, in the matrix, in the propaganda that's running rampant in the media. And truth be told, that's what started my passion and the drive to become a journalist back in 2011. I saw how media was portraying my community, rave culture, and that wasn't truth. So I saw how that pattern, and have been seeing how that pattern continues and is happening again in 2020. And with the big V word and the big C19, my experience with it, and you could have checked out the, you know, the medicine of 2020, of the coronavirus. It's like one of the biggest episodes I had in 2020. But this has just been a time for us to come back and unify with ourselves. And that's what I've learned through Yeshua, is to stay true to myself, to stay true to my truth, and to honor what resonates with me and to do it with confidence. But again, you cannot be in that space and that level of confidence if you still have a lot of childhood trauma and ancestral conditioning running the show. It's why I have Thrive. It's what I'm touching a little bit about in Slay Your Systems, because if you have a deeper work to do, then Thrive's that experience for you. But Slay Your Systems, my upcoming program, is more about, you know, productivity and mystical and practical planning to go out there and work smarter instead of harder and really share your truth and your medicine. And so I just really encourage you to start thinking about, you know, what have been the conditionings of the New Age movement, of how you need to be who you need to be. And I think we've seen, you know, a lot of that. Like teachers that, you know, people, like everyone had Doreen Virtue's card decks, and then she completely walked away and has gone like full super hard to the right. And I don't think that's the answer either, because there still is a lot of that conditioning from that church, from those hard like evangelicals, and I have it in my family, so I see it. But to me, it's like, if Jesus, Yeshua, is to love you for who you are, can you just allow yourself to be who you are? And the way that I think of, you know, walking alongside Yeshua is to have compassion. It's to show up fully embodied in your truth, and again, to be in that space of non-judgment. And even in the New Age movement, there's a lot of judgment of like, oh, I'm more spiritual than you. I sat and did meditation for 2 hours every day. Cool. Great. You go. But each of us, we're all helping to walk each other home. And we need to understand that there's a bridge that is that's connecting and combining and unifying the ancient wisdom, which a lot of Yeshua's teaching is also part of the ancient wisdom, and the now. And in the now, it's about sovereign embodiment. That's the big thing. It's just been really fascinating to see how a lot of people, especially like on YouTube, this is when I first saw it, I was like looking up over the summer like candle magic, because it's been a huge tool for me that's been really supportive and helping. And when I think about, growing up in the church, lighting white candles, lighting candles, my mom had those pillar candles of like Yeshua and like the kids with the guardian angel. Like I grew up around that. And so there's been pieces of childhood upbringing that still I resonate with, right? There's pieces that I respect, but the dogma pieces and the elements, that's where you can say, no, thank you, and you don't consent to that. And I don't think Yeshua would really want that for you either. Let's be real. And so all in all, I just want you to understand that I still respect Yeshua as like my main guide. It's definitely like who I go to, who I've always like felt protected from. But it was the church's stories and upbringing and conditioning and dogma that had me have a really ugly, or, as a Gemini, I have two sides in me, but a really untrusting. It was very hard for me to trust. I always knew there was like some little like, as the Bible said, like you just have to have like your faith like as big as a mustard seed. And I had that, knowing that, Yeshua can and will be there as my support, but there was still like the heaviness of the patriarchal system of the religion and the dogma that really blocked me from having a true relationship with Yeshua. And if I'm to walk like Yeshua, again, I'm choosing to love the leper. I'm choosing to love those that are just so brainwashed and conditioned, because I have compassion for them. Because those people, they don't know how to think for themselves. They're still dictated by the ancestral and childhood trauma. So with this solstice and this holiday season and Christmas around the corner and 2021 around the corner and us closing out this year on the podcast, I just invite you to unify with your truth. And if you're around the family for the holidays, how can you be more compassionate to them? Because their behavior and the way they're acting out is all projection of like what's going on within them and their inner child. And that's just what I think about all the time, is we're all doing our best based on how aware we actually are of what we're doing. And so welcome in the age of Aquarius, and it's time for us to rebel against these systems, and we're going to continue doing that. And just please note that we're all in different parts of our spiritual journey. So if there's someone that's like, so love and light, remember when you were in that space too. Because I definitely was that, ending my emails, love and light. But I was really caught up in the false light and the matrix of, what spirituality is quote unquote supposed to look like. It's not true. You're a spiritual being having a human experience, which means true spirituality is about you embodying your sovereignty, your truth. And this is what we need to run with in 2021 and what we need to remember as we close out 2020. And just trust this process. Surround yourself with people who are seeing the way you are. Don't be afraid to speak your truth. We give it all up to God, source, prime creator. And that's the other thing we need to see. If you are like triggered by the word God, the name God, go back and start doing that deeper inner child trauma work and start loving that inner child within you and recognize that pattern and be willing to just nourish yourself, because you're not going to accelerate into unity consciousness, into Hieros Gamos, if you're still triggered by a word like God. So I'm very curious to hear what your take is on all of this. And so I'd love to hear that in the comment section of the YouTube video. And it's going to be really interesting to see more of 2021 disclosure happening. It's just really wild. I'm very looking forward to see more of the spiritual bypassing being exposed, because it's a lot of the drive of the New Age movement as well. That's the love and light your way through it. Good vibes only. You are here to honor all of your emotions. You are here to learn from that wisdom and that experience that you can be of service. You can't Om Shanti 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 your way out of the depths of your pain and trauma. You've got to go into it. And that's the other thing. A lot of the evangelical far swing to the right, they spiritually bypass as well. Of like, oh, Jesus will take care of it. Yes, and you have to take action and do the work. I see a lot of evangelical born-again Christians forgetting the importance of like taking care of their side of the street. And there's a lot of that martyrdom that can come from it too. I see it through family all the time. They want to help everyone else, but they aren't helping themselves. And I know Yeshua would want you to take care of your side of the road so that you can show up fully embodied and be of service. And that's what I really invite you to take initiative and take action of this holiday season, closing out 2020 and into 2021. How can you do that work that you've been avoiding? And remember to ask for help. Like, stay humble and just trust. You've got this. You are supported. You are guided. And to close out, I just want to say thank you. 2020 has been such a weird year. And I took some months away from the podcast just to close out my Saturn return and just to be in my energy and in my truth to really cultivate my life on a solid foundation of my sovereign embodiment. And so while we've been doing this podcast since 2016 and have over 307,000 downloads, I just want to say thank you and thanks for your love on Instagram. I am going to be shifting a lot more of the space to bring in more business advice, as well as sovereign embodiment. So those are my two pillars, of sovereign embodiment and business alchemy. And I'm just excited to see more of us unleash our truth and our medicine with the world, and knowing that Yeshua has our back and that we are free to be who we are. The dogma days are over, if you allow it, because it's all up to your decision and your choice. So make that choice to anchor in the Aquarian Age of being the rebel, the psychedelic sheep of a society that loves conditioning and fear-mongering, which has been the path of 2020. This is how they've been holding us back from unifying with that Yeshua Christ codes, the Christ consciousness of that love, unconditional love for ourselves, unconditional love for those that are projecting out and causing a lot of this harm and pain, and staying in your own lane. So practice your discernment And I appreciate you. I love you. And I'm looking forward to see what 2021 has in store. The Sovereign Society podcast will be back on January 11th. And in the meantime, get caught up on your episodes and just remember to enjoy this life, because that's what Yeshua would really want, is for you to enjoy your life unapologetically as you. I love you, and I'll see you on the other side. Take care. Satnam.